Hey students, welcome to week 5. You are officially past the halfway point, so pat yourself on the back, kiss your brain. We are almost there. So lots to do this week, as you'll notice under your week 5 checklist here. You are already watching this week's lecture about reviewing an argument essay, so yay, got that done. You still have your regular forum posts, but in addition you have a peer review also due by Wednesday night, so make sure you take care of that. There are directions under week 5 how to access that peer review, but essentially you're going to go back into week 4 and look at each other's rough draft. And that's where you also post your peer review. So just note that you'll have both of those things due, your regular forum post for week 5 and your peer review, both due by Wednesday night. Like normally you have a quiz by Thursday night. On Friday you have to both complete your DLA. Remember that has to be completed, done, and sort of approved by the Language Success Center by 3 o'clock. So please don't wait on that. In fact, if you are thinking to yourself, I'd rather get that done today, I certainly would go for it. One thing to mention, I did notice a lot of you struggled with commas on your last essay, on the Remembering an Event essay. So if there is a DLA on commas, which I'm pretty sure there is, please check that one out and see if that can help inform you of how and when to comma. Forum responses are due by Friday night, and then your final draft of Arguing a Position is due to turn it in by Saturday night. So remember that's your final draft, and you're going to go to turnitin.com and post it there. So it's not going to be posted in week 5. Your final draft just goes right back to the Turnitin. Also, I think all but one of you have finished grading your Remembering an Event essay. So if you haven't already taken a look at those, or you haven't checked out your grade on turnitin.com in a while, it should be all up to date. So remember, if there's anything missing, if you feel like, oh, why did Vicki, give me 5 points and I did both, forum responses, make sure you email me and let me know. I am a human being. I do make errors sometimes, so that does happen. I do try to double check everything. Let's see. So this week we are going to be talking a lot about revising your argument essays. In fact, I'm not even assigning reading this week. I really just want you to throw your time and energy into revising your argument essay. And there are lots of ways you can revise or work on your own. You can read it out loud. I know for me that's one of the most effective ways I can catch some of my mistakes. When I read out loud, I tend to read slower, and I tend to read verbatim, literally what is on the page, and I read those words. That helps me catch a lot of the little words that I'm missing or misspelled words sometimes. You can read to a friend or to your spouse, so that's one way to do that as well. Also, I want you to make sure you pay attention to those peer review comments. Go back through and look at those. If you didn't look at the comments I made on your outline, please do. I do grade against you heavily if you don't consider the things that I told you, right? Or if a peer reviewer made a really great suggestion and you didn't end up taking that suggestion. Or, right, so again, make sure you're sort of paying attention to the comments I've made and your peer reviewers as a way to help you revise. Also, when you are working on your essay, try to break down every point that you're trying to make and ask yourself if that point is perfectly clear, right? Every sentence, especially topic sentences, but every body paragraph, I really want you to say, okay, am I actually making myself clear? What is the point? Did I get it across? Did I supply enough evidence? Okay, so if you want some professional help with revising your essays too, you can click on that Smart Thinking Tutoring link when you click on your homepage, I think on your homepage where it gives you access to your Panther and email and Moodle and all that kind of thing. Remember that tutors in general don't fix your essays for you. They work with you. So they might make a suggestion on how to fix something, and then it's up to you to kind of fix that. I can always help you too. I work the same way like a tutor does. So I am not there to fix your essay. I am there to help you fix your essay. So if you were to send me an email and say, hey Vicki, I've revised my intro like you told me, here, can you take a look at it and see if this is working any better? That's the kind of email that I'll respond to. If you send me your whole essay and say help, I'm not going to necessarily respond in the way that you think I might. I'll ask you for specific questions, right? It's a conversation, so please be mindful. I do have other students. I have a life. I have kids, as most of you know. So I'm happy to help, though. I really do want you to nail down how to form an argument. You can also go into the Language Success Center too. So they offer tutoring as well. That does not count for your DLA though. So just be mindful that tutoring is totally separate from DLA. And those DLAs are due 3 o'clock by Friday. So let's actually take a look at an essay I wanted to share with you. This is an essay from a student a few years ago who's now actually in law school. Really exciting. I'm super happy for him. And this essay is good, but there are problems with it, as you'll see. It is older. Obviously, this is when I was teaching over at RCC. And some of this information is obviously outdated. It's changed a lot now. The essay itself is about for-profit colleges. And as many of you may or may not know, a lot of for-profit colleges have been shut down in the last year specifically for some of these problems that the student is talking about. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go paragraph by paragraph and read it aloud, and I'm going to tell you what I see as a problem or something that the student can work on. All right. So notice here, I immediately just check format. That's the very first thing I do when I look at your essay. So in this case, I've removed the student's last name, but last name would go here, and then the page number, the student's name, my name, Professor Talacro. Make sure you spell it right. Some of you are still just spelling out all kinds of crazy ways. English 1A, and then the date in the international date format. So that's day, month, year. Also, title is centered. It's capitalized correctly. There's no bold, there's no underline. So make sure you're getting all that stuff right. There's 1-inch margins all the way around, right? And that's to include, I'll scroll down here to the Works Cited page, right? Same thing. Works Cited page, it's its own page. It's the very last page after the essay. It still continues with your last name, the page number. The title Works Cited is centered, no bold, no underline, nothing special happening there. Everything is still double spaced, okay? All right, so buying an MBA. You have seen the billboards and YouTube commercials. I see you sitting on the couch. You ain't doing nothing with your life, so why don't you come to Everest and get an education? Or the girl who sings on late night TV. I got my nursing degree in just 9 months on educationconnection.com. These are just a few examples of the advertisements we see on a daily basis for new vocational schools and career colleges. For-profit colleges are institutions built for making money, with seemingly little interest in helping people truly succeed. They are exploiting the educational system in America while taking advantage of the federal student loan programs, as well as young people's ambitions for a college degree. So, initial thoughts on that introduction. I think the student is trying to be engaging here. I don't know if you have seen those kind of commercials on late night TV, but it rings a bell with me. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he did that. He tried to sort of bring you the commercials as a way to kind of hook you in there. The second we see the essay take a stance and try to couch it in a controversial manner is right here in this sentence. For-profit colleges are institutions built for making money with seemingly little interest in helping people truly succeed. Already, that's an opinion, right? Certainly people who have maybe attended a for-profit college have a different experience or a different opinion of that. This particular student feels like they don't have an interest in helping people succeed, and part of that is because the institution itself is built for making money. This isn't quite his thesis, though. Right? This is his thesis here. They are exploiting the educational system in America while taking advantage of the student loan programs as well as young people's ambitions for a college degree. It's kind of a clunky thesis. Just grammatically, there are some things that I sort of react to. Some of you actually have theses that are really nicely constructed where you sort of give the claim itself and then you list very sort of nicely the things that you're going to talk about later. This particular student kind of lumped them all into two different kind of categories. They're exploiting the educational system, and then taking advantage of young people's ambitions. I think, and you'll see sort of as we break down the body paragraphs, I think this could be written in a better way that would actually be a little bit more clear and help the student organize their essay a little bit better. All right, so let's move on here to the second paragraph, first body paragraph. According to the documentary College Inc., for-profit schools spend nearly 25% of their funds on advertising and marketing, but only 10% to pay faculty members. By spending so little on their curriculum, it is obvious that they are not very committed to educating their students. These schools are receiving millions of dollars in federal funding without the success of its postgraduates finding jobs or being able to pay back their insurmountable loans. Although for-profit schools enroll about 10% of the nation's college populations, 45% of the students who defaulted on their loans attended such institutions. And then we get an in-text citation. So several things that I've noticed here. This particular body paragraph is, well, at least the first sentence says that it's going to talk about spending, right? Most of the spending goes to advertising and marketing, but only 10% to pay their faculty members. And then the student says, by spending so little on their curriculum, it's obvious that they are not very committed to educating their students. I'm not quite sure if that's a logical fallacy. I have to think about that a little bit longer, but it doesn't seem like the student has necessarily made that argument yet. And so what I would prefer is if the students sort of explore that a little bit more before jumping to that conclusion that it's obvious they're not committed to educating their students. The other thing I want to note about this particular paragraph is never exit a paragraph with a quote, right? Do you see right here? The student just leaves this quote. Although for-profit schools enroll about 10% of the nation's college populations, 45% of the students who defaulted on their loans attended such institutions. So it seems like a really great quote. I'm not really sure who that source is yet until I get down to the end of the essay, and then I personally, as your instructor, usually go back and check all of those sources, see if they're credible or not. If I remember correctly, this isn't a credible source. I think this is a news source. But that said, my problem here is that the student just sort of gives us this piece of evidence and then kind of gets out of the paragraph. And so what I would prefer is another sentence here, maybe even two sentences that ties this idea back to the thesis. What is the student getting at here, right? And so again, if the student here had like a really, really clear thesis, I think it might be a little bit easier. Even with this thesis he has right now, I think the student could have done a better job of tying back this quote to what he's trying to the point he's trying to make here. Okay, so if you have any body paragraphs that you have sort of given a quote and exited the paragraph, make sure you come back and you actually explain what that quote is about. This is a really important point. If you don't remember anything else I say in this whole lecture, please note that. That's something that's really important to do. All right, let's look at the next paragraph here. With the intense overcrowding of junior colleges and higher tuition rates of UCs, for-profit colleges are sprouting out of the ground like weeds. Some use large buildings, others use a tiny office space inside a Walmart shopping center behind the Toys R Us. Everywhere you look, there is a new, quote, college opening up that offers a wide variety of fields to study, from nursing, graphic design, business, court reporting, to teaching degrees and beyond. However, they hold only what is called national accreditation, which units are completely non-transferable to state universities and community colleges. That can be devastating for someone who may want to switch majors or complete their studies at a college closer to home. If he or she dreamed of finishing his or her bachelor's degree at UCLA and already completed several semesters at University of Phoenix, it would be meaningless. They would have to start over. So the point the student's trying to make in this particular paragraph is that accreditation is problematic. And my biggest complaint about this particular paragraph, although I like how the student tries to sort of tie in this idea of colleges sprouting up everywhere, I want the student to go more into detail about what exactly is national accreditation and who is responsible for issuing that. Is the government actually sort of overseeing accreditation, or is it just some sort of, independent body that says, yes, you shall now be accredited? Because if that's the case, if that might convince me a little bit more that for-profit colleges, right, have something, or let me try to rephrase that. For-profit colleges are actually sort of out for themselves and not interested in educating students. So that's one thing I would want the student to do here, is delve deeper. All right, let's look at the next one. High interest rates on student loans and lack of jobs make the struggle for finding employment even more difficult. It is not surprising to learn that these schools' marketing and sales departments actually have to fill monthly requirements of students they must enroll in order to keep their jobs. Customer service representatives are taught to use aggressive marketing tactics to coax in new students. A former counselor from a well-known for-profit school, Ashford University, said in an interview, "We are forced to do anything necessary to get people to fill out an application. Our jobs depend on it." Furthermore, the counselors were instructed to, quote, "get to what's bothering students so that way you can convince them that a college degree is going to solve all their problems," unquote. It is safe to say in that case that it really does not matter if someone is qualified or ready to handle the demands of a 9-month program to obtain a nursing degree. As long as the student agrees to the loose stipulations of their 9-month programs, schools like Fordham, Everest, and UEI colleges, whose graduation rates are exceptionally low, will accept just about anybody. So again, just kind of picking this body paragraph apart a little bit, I see that this first sentence as actually maybe discussing two different things. And then the rest of the paragraph kind of talking about something else. So notice here that the student says high interest rates, right, on loans and lack of jobs make the struggle for finding employment even more difficult. I think both of those things could be two different paragraphs. The student can talk about high interest rates and debt in another paragraph, and they could talk about success rates and finding jobs in another body paragraph to help support their thesis here. Notice here, right, we're talking about the aggressive sales tactics. So again, that's kind of a different idea. I might make that its own paragraph too. And I would rearrange all of these paragraphs. So I'll let you know at the end how I might arrange them. But just notice here, and I see this a lot, right? The student here is feeling very passionate, right? But the paragraphs are getting a little muddied down with too many ideas, which is why it's really important to have like a solid outline. Those of you who you know, spent a lot of time on your outline probably found that it was a little bit easier to come up with that rough draft. And now that you have a rough draft, sort of really examining, hey, are all of my points, you know, they're separated? Am I making the point in every body paragraph? All right. Let's look at this paragraph. Our society has come to the fantastic realization that college education is absolutely fundamental to be successful. In a time when the economy is hurting badly and jobs are difficult to come by, it seems that everyone and their mother is going back to school. The truth is that it is not always so simple. Junior colleges like RCC are suffering tremendous cuts to their budgets, $14.1 million next semester, which will force them to cut a substantial amount of classes and increase their tuition costs. UCs and Cal States are also overcrowded and facing a budget crisis. So who's going to service the staggering number of incoming students each year? The answer is simple: the for-profit colleges. These schools enroll more students than the UCs and Ivy League schools combined. They also have tuition costs that on average pan out to be nearly twice the amount of traditional UC schools and private colleges. Their intent is to get students to commit to overwhelming loans, and the consequence is that they will never be able to pay them back. This paragraph actually feels really misplaced to me. I don't know if you felt like that when I was reading it, but I almost felt like this is kind of an intro, or maybe a secondary intro where it's explaining sort of the budget crisis of 2012 and the rising amount of students going into college, and the decreased classes in the public college system, and how the for-profits are just kind of sprouting up. So I might make the suggestion to the student that after the initial intro, maybe this might be a good sort of secondary intro to kind of explain why these colleges are popping up, and really how many students are actually enrolled in them. That would be something else to maybe list in this particular paragraph. Let's look here. In several cases, students are told when they join that a high percentage of graduates, 85%, as in my brother's case, will have job placement. He attended an automotive technical school in Ontario, California, that told him he would be working for one of the top car companies in the nation. However, today, only 2 from his entire class are working for Mercedes-Benz and BMW, while my brother holds down a retail position at AutoZone. For-profit counselors tell students that if school is requiring too much of their time, he or she can finish later or online, but neglect to mention how much interest is being accumulated on their load during that delay. I think that should say loan. This is another deceptive tactic the for-profits use. The reality is, however, that very few people will graduate with job opportunities, so the vast majority is left to seek out employment on their own. So a couple of things I noticed here. One is this particular personal example right here about his brother ending up working in AutoZone. That is totally fine to use. Now, it doesn't necessarily count as credible, researched expert testimony or anything like that, but especially for those of you that are working in the field maybe that you are actually talking about in your argument, I feel like that's totally fine to bring in some personal connection to this. It makes it a little bit more human, it makes it a little bit more interesting. In this particular example, it kind of makes that, it quantifies what the student is talking about with a real example of a real person that the student knows. The other thing here is that, let's see, I might actually maybe move this paragraph as well into sort of next to another paragraph that's talking about deceptive tactics. Because what he's trying to say right here, right, is that the counselors or the schools themselves neglect to mention interest or how long the student has to finish their degree. And so the writer here is trying to say that this is just another deceptive tactic. So I might, again, sort of move that to be a little bit more effective. On the other hand, the advantages these schools say they offer are undeniable. Pause right there. Do you notice that is a counter argument? Right? So the student all along is saying for-profit schools are not good. They are selfish, they are greedy, they are deceptive. Here's why. Notice here, the student is not changing his stance, right? He's just sort of saying, hey, I get it. These schools do offer something, right? And so he's going to explore that for a second. So on the other hand, the advantages these schools say they offer are undeniable. Students, our parents, I think I should say and, students and parents will argue that flexible hours, online courses, various fields of study that are demanding jobs in the workforce, and the instant gratification of fast graduation are extremely appealing. However, there's the counter. However, just ask 3 nursing students who attended Everest College nursing program and are now buried alive in nearly $30,000 in debt. We never set foot in a hospital. We went to a museum of Scientology for our psychiatric rotation, and our pediatrics rotation was in a daycare. These 3 women are only a few of thousands of people who feel they have been cheated, who feel they have been cheated by the for-profit system because now they cannot find a job. So again, what the student is saying here, it's a counter argument. He is not letting go of his idea that for-profit colleges are serving themselves, right? What he's saying here is although he understands that there are a lot of advantages to going to a school that's going to offer you a degree and hopefully a career in a shorter amount of time, he gets that that's totally undeniable, right? However, it doesn't sort of stack up against, at least in the case he's making, right, for the amount of debt that the students will incur having attended that for-profit college. Again, I think there is a way to explore that deeper. Perhaps here might be a moment where the student can talk about, well, who does succeed? Out of that 10% of students who actually sort of graduate and place into their field of choice, are they actually successful? Do they end up being able to pay off that debt? So I think the student could have gone one step further here. Likewise, I think the paragraph itself could have been moved closer maybe to the actual debt paragraph itself, so that way it sort of makes more sense. For-profit colleges only make it seem like they are the fast track to a promising career. Choosing a for-profit by avoiding 4 years at a state university will only cause someone infinitely more problems and absurd amounts of debt. Notice debt spelled wrong. Not just debt from opening too many credit card accounts, but the kind that never goes away. You cannot file for bankruptcy or avoid paying because the government will never cease to try and recoup their federal loan money. They will persist by going into checking accounts and taking personal belongings until the debt is completely dissolved. So here again, I would want the student to go deeper. So on average, what is the amount of debt that students are facing who attend a for-profit college? How does that stack up against students who go attend a public four-year university, right? Are they able to pay it back, right? So again, just maybe finding that other research that would help go give us that kind of evidence that we need right here. The government needs to cut federal funding to for-profit schools substantially. Too much of the taxpayers' money is unethically being spent to aggressively enroll new students and not enough on educating them. Until it is clear from the statistics that more than one in 5 students are graduating from a for-profit school, or more students are finding jobs after graduation, there needs to be a refocus on the mission of the schools. If the investors on Wall Street are so concerned about how their school is going to function without federal funding, they will put up the money themselves. A former director of the first and largest for-profit school, University of Phoenix, said in an interview about spending more money on advertisements and education that, quote, "When I buy perfume for my mom, the chemicals in that perfume bottle amount to 50 cents. But that company spends about $5 or $6 on getting you to buy that product. What makes education so special?" So this paragraph to me, let's see, feels also a little bit maybe misplaced. So the first sentence here is offering maybe not a solution, but maybe sort of a demand for the government to cut that funding, which is fine. I would maybe suggest keeping your solutions for the conclusion themselves. But then also the student is sort of criticizing the school's missions. And so maybe there needs to be a refocusing of this particular paragraph. What I do like about this, though, is that the way the student sort of does this right here. So we end with this quote, which do not do, right? But then he sort of follows that up with his conclusion right here. What makes education special is that someone's future depends on it. So maybe sort of combined, the student could, I guess, sort of blow up these particular 2 paragraphs and write in a more solid conclusion. All right, so actually let's sort of look at this conclusion. What makes education special is that someone's future depends on it. Knowledge should never be for sale. Too many struggling students in the UC and junior college system who are on their way to receiving a degree are already too far in debt and could really use the extra financial assistance. Why not let the for-profit prove to us that they are really what they say they are and not just a part of the avarice 1%. Have them demonstrate that their main, if not sole purpose, is to help improve lives. Until then, I can guarantee you that I will never pay a chiropractor to fix my back who got his doctorate degree in, quote, just 9 months from the singing girl on TV. So here it's a nice conclusion in the way that he sort of wrapped it back up to the singing girl on TV that he spoke about in the beginning. If I scroll down here to the works cited page, I can just briefly sort of see that, yes, the student did organize it by last name here, alphabetically. I can certainly look up all of these things, which I would do if I was grading this. I can tell kind of right off the bat, though, that none of these things are actual credible sources, at least just initially looking. Especially, I can see HuffPost, right? Usually journalists are writing these pieces. Same thing with Frontline PBS. And not that there's anything wrong with a journalist, but they are a writer. They are reporters. They are telling you the things that they have found. as opposed to someone who's an expert in the field. So, you know, if I was requiring you all with, I think it's 4 credible sources, right? These would not count. So my largest concern for this particular student, if he were turning this in this Saturday, right? 1, he needs way more research, and I mentioned those particular paragraphs that I would add that particular research in. I would also reorganize all of these body paragraphs, I think. I might start with those deceptive tactics, especially the sales pressure to get students to sign up for the for-profit colleges, and then maybe the deceptive tactics of job placement, because that's part of how they sort of sell it to you, or sell it to whoever's signing up. Then I might have a paragraph about accreditation, or the lack thereof. Then maybe a paragraph on the money spent on schools for profits. And actually the student never went into this, but that's one question that I still have, is who is actually pocketing the money? I know that the schools are called for-profit colleges, but are there boards? Are there CEOs? Like, are there people actually sort of making money on this? And who is that? Then I might go into the counter, and then debt, and then maybe loss of jobs. So I would say that this particular student, if he was sort of revising this and turning this in on Saturday, could actually spend several hours revising this. It's a good essay, but it's not where it needs to be yet. So it's a good sort of working draft. So that's exactly what I would want you to do in yours, is just go sort of paragraph by paragraph and figure out if you are being clear and making your point. If at any time you have questions, again, if you get stuck, if you feel like you're not making the counter argument clear enough, please make sure you send me an email. And please email me before Saturday, even though I do check my email on Saturday, but a lot of you stay up late and work on your homework, whereas I am an old lady who goes to bed early and tends to get up early. But anyways, all right, that's this week's lecture. Good luck. Email me if you have questions or problems, and I'll see you on Moodle. Bye.